Hey there, welcome to the August 2026 Homestead Huddle, where we're going to talk about all things gardening, farming, homesteading, and everything in between. Got my matcha ready here in my new vintage cup, by the way. I'm pretty excited about this. It reminded me, when I saw it at the antique store the other day in DeLand, of my friend Miss Ollie, who's probably in her 90s. She always said, like, you know, at 90, you kind of forget how old you are after that point. So anyway, she had the full set of the mushroom, dishes and cookie jar and sugar jars and all that sort of thing. And when I saw this at the antique store, I was like, yep, I'm gonna need me a mushy coffee cup. Miss Ollie has been a friend of mine for the last about, I think, 6 years. And I remember a couple years ago in August, I was in her backyard and we were getting ready to start her fall garden. And one of the things that she was sharing with me that I have remembered ever since is that every window in her house is a picture frame. And we were sitting around the table and I was literally looking out the window going, okay, there's a bird bath outside of this one. There's a little garden statue outside of this one. This one, she sees her favorite flower, the pagoda flower, the Japanese pagoda flower. And every window had this like picture frame. And she said, you know what, why waste a good window with a nice, frame? It's a photograph, it's a painting, it's a picture. So put something outside of every window that you want to look at. And as a designer, that's something that they didn't teach me when I was doing my permaculture certifications or whatever. It's like you're thinking about soil and water. You're not really thinking about the view outside of the window. So sometimes I feel like those life lessons you can only learn from 90-year-old friends with really great choices in vintage coffee mugs. So anyway, for me, August is one of my favorite times of the year to be in the garden. I remember growing up and I would get home from school. The first few days of school were always the hardest because you're used to summer vacation life. You're used to running and playing outside and having adventures. So then you go back to school and you're in the cage of the building, moving around at the sound of a bell every 55 minutes or whatever it was. And for me, getting home in August was absolute bliss. I would literally get home, go in the house, get a quick drink of water, and then I would immediately run into the entryway, take my shoes off, and go run in the grass and go climb trees, go out into the woods, go have an adventure. Usually found my way to my mom's garden, and I love the taste, even to this day, of warm from the sun spring beans or like green beans. And so I remember that taste, and they've got to be warm. I don't love cold green beans. Like, they've got to be warm, fresh out of the garden. And I remember getting home from school, and now obviously it was Michigan, so the grass was enjoyable to walk on. It's not like Florida sand spurs where every 2 steps you hit like an ant pile, a sand spur, a dang snake or a scorpion or whatever. In Michigan, nothing wanted to unalive you. You know what I mean? Like, there were no poisonous spiders, really. There's no poisonous snakes. There was technically the Mississauga rattler that I saw once in my entire life, and it wasn't even in the state of Michigan. So it's like growing up, we would go in the woods bare feet because you can. In Florida, it's kind of go barefoot at your own risk, I guess you could say. But even to this day, I feel like August is one of my favorite times to be outside, to be in the garden. Now in Florida, now in my adult life, very different growing up in Michigan. So in Florida right now, our food forests are at their peak. The avocados are ripening, so good. Brogdon is doing fantastic. Mexico Grande is absolutely delicious. I went and stole one off my friend Wayne's tree the other day because that's who I gave mine to. And let's see, mangoes are kind of wrapping up a little bit for the season. There's still some that are ripe on the trees, but a lot of my favorite mangoes are kind of wrapping up a little bit. And so the food forest for me is at its peak. It's fully green, it's lush, we're getting daily rains, knock on wood, for the most part. The food forest is in full-on production. Tropical spinaches are looking phenomenal. I just had sauteed, what did I have last night? Chief Kobo's South Sea salad is what I had last night. And then I also made this really nice bruschetta that I got the recipe from the Copper Spoon. It's like this Instagram, Patreon, fantasy cookbook for families. Like the cookbook takes you on an adventure with your kids. It's super cool. I just enjoy it as an adult. But the bruschetta I had last night with some really good basil out of the food forest and tomatoes, and added in some Salsi salad to that as well. You know, so food forest season is in full-on production right now. The other interesting thing with August, for those that are in USDA zones 9 through 11, is we are entering, finally, the annual vegetable season, because ain't nobody in Florida, ain't nobody that's smart in Florida doing annual vegetables in the summer. That's the time when the annual vegetable gardens are resting, the cover crops are doing their thing, the cowpeas, the sun hemp, all the things. And so now we're getting ready in September to start annual vegetable season again, which means we're starting to plant some things by seed. So let's talk real quick about the most important things that you could be, should be, maybe should prioritize in the garden every month. Or this month. So if you are living in USDA zones 3 through 8, the colder climate, temperate growing zones, there's a few things that I would prioritize this month. Now, first and foremost, plant your wildlife food plots. So this is for your deer, your turkeys, you're planting in the fields a lot of those winter crops. So on our family homestead up in Michigan, just recently was crimping over the buckwheat that was growing all summer long. There's a picture there of my dad. The buckwheat there in Michigan grows 3 or 4, almost 5 feet tall. So we're crimping that over, and then we're overseeding with things we're getting ready for winter months. I know it sounds so weird to be starting that already, but we're planting clover, we're planting ryegrass, we're planting daikon radish, we're planting turnips, we're planting beets. Those are all going into the food plots and into the fields right now, so that way they can be mature and get established before the frost comes. Now, in Michigan, we're not talking about cold and the snow and that 4-letter S word yet. You know, that's something that we don't start talking about until October, you know, even end of October. So for right now, in those colder climate, temperate growing zones, still enjoy the garden, still enjoy the food forest, but you do need to start planting those food plots. The second thing that you can be doing this month is start your winter crops. So think of kale, think of lettuce, think of the brassica family. So your broccoli, your cabbage, your cauliflower. Those are all seeds that have to go in the ground in August if you're going to want them to be matured coming into those colder months. Now, if you have a polytunnel, you know, or a greenhouse, you can put it off a little bit because you can really extend that growing season. But if you're going directly in the ground or in raised beds in USDA zones 3 through 8, it is time to get out those winter crop seeds and get those seeds started. I know that is like mind-blowing to be thinking about that the first and second, third week of August, but it is time. The third thing in USDA zones 3 through 8 is fall soil amending. So when you look at the NPK, those 3 numbers on a fertilizer, the one that we really want to focus on is going to be that last number. That's going to be the highest in the potash and the potassium. And so the reason why we want to focus on that last number, specifically minerals this month, is that's going to strengthen our root system. It causes fruit trees to start hardening off. So we're not doing nitrogen fertilizers. We don't want to be pushing green growth this later in the season. Not what we want to focus on. We want to start focusing on hardening them off. So think about that last number. Consider azomite as one of my favorite things to be fertilizing with in the cold temperate climate growing zones this month. Azomite is high minerals, but very high in silica because you don't get to grow the bamboos like we do here in the South, the clumping bamboos anyway. Azomite is a really good way to get silica, strengthens that root system, helps the wood harden off and get ready for the winter months. Think of Epsom salts, magnesium sulfate. Rock dust is another one. So we're focusing on those minerals for our fall amendments right now. So again, if you're in those colder temperate climate growing zones, still enjoy the annual flower beds, the annual vegetables, but get ready for those winter food plots. Start planting the winter crops and the root crops now and start your fall soil amending. I'm going to get a nice little drink here. That matcha is really good. I started doing matcha with, so I use the ceremonial grade green tea matcha from Wild Food Co. And then I add in a little bit of almond milk creamer. I mean, come on, it just does not get much better than that. So if you are in USDA zones 9 through 11, a few things to really prioritize for us this month in these warmer subtropical and tropical climates. So first and foremost, this is the time of year for your late season chop and drop. Late season chop and drop. So get on the Napier grass, Mexican sunflower, the vetiver grass, the sun hemp, especially sun hemp if you're growing in annual vegetable beds, get on the chop and drop. You want it to start decomposing while we're still in that warmer season, the rainy season. It just helps speed up the decomposition and the composting in place process. So this is a really, really good time to chop and drop. Now remember, on things like Napier grass and Mexican sunflower, we don't want to be throwing down and burying things that have hardened off. So if it's turned brown and woody on the stem, you waited a little too long. So you want to be chopping and dropping those when they are still very, very green on the stems and you don't see any aerial roots, because I don't want them rooting all over the food forest. I want them to decompose in place and go back into the soil. I don't want them to be sprouting new Mexican sunflowers. Now, if you waited too long, option one, run it through a chipper. Easy, just run those things through a chipper and you're good to go. Option two, you can long compost them, really, really hot compost them to really cook them so they don't germinate. Option three, you can set them out to dry in the sun and then compost them. I don't know, let's have four options. Option four is use it for propagation. So you can propagate those woody stem plants, the Mexican sunflower, the Napier grass, the elephant grass. You can propagate those pretty much directly by digging a hole and sticking it in, and they will probably root for you. So that's, for me, is really the most important task. I mean, if you can get that done this month, the other ones are like, if I get it done, great. If I don't. But that chop and drop thing, this is the time of year. And you know me, I love chop and drop. It is stress relieving. It's instant gratification because you free up so much space. I just love using a machete. My favorite is a rice knife to just grab and pull and cut that way. So really, really fun. That's my favorite job of the month. The second thing to start doing this month, which is a little bit harder to get the patience to do it because it is so hot. It is 110-degree heat index right now today. Hence the reason why I am inside, why I'm drinking a hot matcha. I don't really know. So anyway, the second thing, start your nightshades for annual vegetables in trays. So think tomato, think eggplant, think peppers. Those need to be in the trays. In the first 1, 2, 3 weeks of the month, you're pressing it. Fourth week, you're running a little bit late. So start your nightshades now. Everything else that's heat tolerant, put off until the end of the month. So wait on your arugula and whatever. You know, prioritize your nightshades because you want those tomatoes in now. The reason why is because if you plant them too late, we usually get like a January, February frost that knocks them back. So it's like in Florida, think of our annual vegetable season as like part 1 and part 2. You got part 1 from September to like Christmas. And then the garden and I take Christmas break. And then after New Year's, then you get kind of like round 2 of our gardening season. And that goes until like the end of April, 1st of May, middle of May. And then really by May, I'm planting my cover crop, you know, and going in. So we kind of get our 2 rounds of annual vegetable season. So it is time to start round 1. It's like the old, you know, video game, round 1. Fight! So now is the time to get in round 1, jump in and get ready. So the third thing that I would focus on this month is finish up your annual raised beds. If you've been building new ones all summer and you haven't finished them, it's time. It is actually time. So it's one of those things like on the hot days, I do like 15 minutes of work on them and then I'm just like, I'm done. It's just too hot. I'm moving on to something else. But now it is officially time. Finish the raised beds. If you're doing hugelkultur, get them wrapped up. If you're doing planting in the ground, get it burned off, get it solarized. It's the last call because 1st of September, you need to be planting everything. You need to be ready to go. So do not wait any longer. If you've been a procrastinator like this guy here, it is officially time to get your sorry button gear. Pour that extra cup of iced coffee, switch to an iced matcha, and get yourself outside. So if you're gonna prioritize 3 things this month, number 1, it's the late season chop and drop. Number 2, it's planting your nightshades and then all the other heat tolerant seeds later in the month. And then number 3, you're finishing up on those raised beds so you can start 1st of September with the annual vegetable season. Okay, so it is that time to jump into the questions and topics that have been requested for the month. As usual, all of these questions and topics come from Patreon members. For those that are not familiar with Patreon, it's a teaching platform that you subscribe to. You get access to, I think we have over 50 classes, a ton of exclusive content and farm tours, like 45 or 55, I've lost track, PDF documents to help you learn farming, learn homesteading. It's basically a class and resource library that you can do month by month or get a discount for a year. So all of the questions come from our Patreon members. So these are literally live questions that homeowners, homesteaders, farmers are thinking about in real time this month. So really fun list of questions this month. I think we have 7 or 8 questions. So we're gonna jump right in. And these are in no particular order. Question number 1, when should we prune avocados and mangoes? And actually, I think this person is in Southern California. So avocados and mangoes are a little bit of a different ball game. Now, when we look at things like stone fruits, peach, pear, plum, nectarine, even apples, the winter time, January, February, is really the prime time for pruning because you want to be pruning them when they are fully dormant. Now, with avocados and mangoes, there's not really a full dormancy period. So they are not deciduous where they're dropping their leaves every single year. So pruning on avocados and mangoes is very different. So the best time to prune is when there's the least amount of sap and growth, sap flowing and growth happening on the plant. So really what you want to do is watch the tree when it's done producing its last fruit, give it a week or 2. What happens is that tree just kind of exhales, I guess you could say. It kind of pauses because it's been holding on to that fruit all spring, all summer long. As soon as it's done, that tree kind of takes a little bit of a break. So you're gonna see a little bit less green growth being pushed. It focuses on the root establishment, and that's when you want to prune. So it's gonna depend on the tree. So for example, let's look at avocados. So like your Fantastic and your Joey that are ripening in like July, August, those are starting to wrap up, many of them, and the fruit is already done. So it's okay for you to go ahead and prune those ones that are already done. Some of the mangoes are already done producing fruit. Go ahead and get those pruned now. The other reason I like to prune them this time of year, practically, is hurricane season. I want to take off as much of the weight and those the big canopy as I can. Now on my avocados, I personally do not like an avocado that is a 30 or 40 foot tall tree. Now, if it's in the front yard or the side yard, okay, I get it. Primarily, I like them where I can reach them. So when I prune an avocado, not a mango, when I prune an avocado, I would take a pole saw, go up as high as you can reach with the pole saw, and just cut it off that way so it stays more columnar or cylindrical, almost like an extra large hedge or a bush, you know what I mean? That way the branches are growing almost all the way to the ground where I can reach all of the fruit on the tree. That's just my personal take on avocados. It's not gonna affect the life expectancy or anything like that, more than maybe a couple years at most. So when you prune your avocados and mangoes, all depends on the variety or the cultivar. So wait until it's done fruiting, give it a week or 2, and then go ahead and prune. Question number 2, what do you use personally when you're cleaning outdoor things like outdoor showers, the deck, furniture, and that sort of thing? Obviously, we know you're gonna use something that's gonna be eco-safe, plant-safe, kid-safe, etc. I use Basic H. So Basic H is from the Shackley Company. I've used it for probably 25 years. I don't even actually know when I started. Oh, I do know when I started. It was when I got diagnosed with cancer. So it would have been 2004. So been using Basic H for a hot minute. It is a plant-based surfactant that the original formula, they always said, has 1,000 uses. The original Basic H is what I use for deworming. It's an off-label use for cattle, for livestock, for chickens, you know, all those things. Joel Salatin does the same method. He wrote about it in his book called, I think it was called Salad Bar Beef, as he gives his measurements. But Basic H is what I use when I'm doing my outside cleaning, because it's also used in agriculture as a surfactant, because it helps soak into the soil and it's not going to damage leaves, it's not going to damage microorganisms, it's not going to kill you know, the native pollinators, that sort of thing. So it's a really good one to use that way. So that's what I use for all of my cleaning. I used it actually yesterday. I was power washing the front of cabins 1 and 2 outside. And when I was power washing, I just gave everything a good spray down with Basic H, let it sit, and then the power washing goes so much easier, so much smoother. And I know it's going to be kid safe. I know it's plant safe, and I know it is going to be pet safe. You can use, obviously, the Basic H2. That's the newer one that comes in the smaller. Basic H2 is primarily for the cleaning purposes, whereas the original formula you can also use for deworming of cattle and livestock as an off-label use. But for me, that's what I use for my showers, outdoor showers, outdoor decks, patio furniture, the side of the house, the side of RVs and campers and boats. Is I pretty much just use Basic H for everything. If you want a link for that, you can actually go to Shackley.com, and I do get a referral kickback on that if you do BB as in boy 20881. I'll put that down below. So if you just say that I referred you, I would greatly appreciate that. So BB as in boy 20881 is that code. Question number 3, what do you think is the best medium for chicken coop floors? And to be fair, I don't actually know if this person asking is doing a mobile chicken coop or a stationary coop. So we'll kind of talk about those separately. On a mobile coop option, I don't use anything for the floor because I just let the manure fertilize and then I move the chicken tractor forward. For my roosting and my nesting area, I use a mesh cloth, like the hardware mesh, so that way the poop can actually go down through it, or I can just kind of rough it up with a brush or a broom and it'll just kind of crumble underneath and, excuse me, and go right back into the soil. So that's really the only thing that I do for the coop floors and the chicken tractors that are mobile. Now, if it's stationary, I personally like good old sand, because it's gonna leach out as much of the nitrates and the nitrites as possible, which means you get less ammonia. The problem when you have like a clay-based soil, if you have a lot of lime or limestone in your soil, is it builds up nitrates and you get that nasty ammonia smell, you get a hard pan, it's disgusting. So in those cases, I would say bring in play sand or contractor sand, the cheapest sharp sand that you can buy. And then I literally would use a kitty litter scoop, because that, or you can even use a stall cleaner, because it'll scoop up and then sift out the poop and the manure. And then you can put that in a separate bucket or container, throw it on a compost pile, and then you're left basically with sand that's acting as kitty litter. Do not use kitty litter in there, because that will turn into clay. And there's a lot of like nasty stuff in kitty litter that's a whole other conversation. So that's probably what I would say for the chicken coop floors. Now, when it comes to the winter months, I typically use, if you're in a colder climate, I use the deep bed method. So instead of like changing it all the time, as soon as I see manure, I add a leaflet of straw, and then I let it build up for a few days. Then I add another leaf of straw, let it build up for a few days. And then all winter long, that's growing. It actually composts there in place, and it really increases the thermal temperature inside of the chicken coops in the winter. And then in the springtime, then I remove that deep bedding method, and then I can use it in the food forest or put it on the compost pile or whatever. So I use the deep bedding method in the winter months. Is primarily what I would use. Now, to go along with that question, I know this is not what the person is asking. I would also strongly recommend not using DE dry in the chicken coop or in the chicken run. Diatomaceous earth, or DE, has razor sharp edges. I mean, it is a fossilized crustacean that when the animals breathe it in, it thrashes their lungs, the lung tissue. It does the same thing as like asbestos does with mesothelioma. So you never want to use DE in the coop or the run. You are just asking and begging for long-term bronchial and lung problems, pneumonia problems, upper respiratory infections with your chickens and your poultry. So DE is something I only use in feed, and only when it's a wet feed, because that's going to help with the deworming, but it's not going to be breathed in and cause the lung tissue damage. Question number 4, what are your suggestions for different mediums for poultry bedding, specifically in the nesting areas? A lot of poultry questions this month. So I would say 3 things. Option 1 is straw. The reason why I like straw is it's fresh, it's clean, it looks pretty, it's very soft on the eggs. It's nice to just use your gloves, grab up, the stuff, throw it on the compost pile, and you're just adding more and more biomass into your composting system. That's the upside to straw. The downside to straw, because there's always a downside, is that it does harbor more bacteria. So if you are one that's not going to stay on changing your bedding, straw's not going to be the solution for you. You're just going to have a petri dish of a bacterial plague inside your chicken coop. So if you're not one that's going to be on top of changing your bedding, straw's not good. If you're one that loves composting, putting that on the compost pile, using that in the food forest, straw is a great option. Option 2, I would say pine shavings, not cedar shavings. Cedar for poultry can cause respiratory infections, so never ever cedar for that. So pine shavings work really well. Similar concept to the straw. It works better if you're gonna stay on it. If you're a mild neglector, the pine shavings are more forgiving because you can add a handful to an existing nesting box without having to clean the whole thing out. And the terpenes, the alpinene that's in those shavings can help sterilize a little bit longer. The other reason I like the pine shavings, it does help deter mites and lice and a lot of the bugs in the pest, whereas straw does not. So that's one of the upsides to that. Now, again, the downside is it does harbor bacteria. So if you're one that's going, I only want to clean out my nesting boxes about once a week or every other week, if that, then straw and pine shavings are not going to be for you. The third option I would say is the thicker AstroTurf. You can actually buy it now specifically for chickens. It's expensive. So I just buy it by the roll of AstroTurf, and I just cut those squares to the inside of the nesting box. The reason why I like them, 1, they're super easy to clean. Honestly, that's really the number 1 reason. They're super easy to clean. You can literally take them out, clunk them off on the side of the chicken coop, and they're mostly clean. And you can get by a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks doing it that way. Now for me, once a month, I do take those out. I soak them in a 5-gallon bucket of bleach just to sterilize everything, or basic H. And then I dry those in the sun, and then I put them back inside. But to me, that's a really long-term use. That stays very clean. It's easier to sterilize. The downside with AstroTurf, obviously, it's plastic. So we're, for those that are wanting to avoid adding plastics and microplastics into the system, probably not a good solution for you. But those are the 3 options that I think are my favorite: is the straw, the pine shavings, and the AstroTurf. Okay, question number 5. Before we get to it, I'm going to take a sip of my matcha, which, out of curiosity, I'm sipping matcha while I'm doing this. I'm just curious what you guys do when you're listening to these. When I listen to YouTube videos, the longer content style, I'm typically cooking at night. That's kind of my thing, is I put on a YouTube video or a podcast on the TV, and I watch and listen at the same time as I'm doing other stuff. The other way that I use, personally, podcast and this long form content is when I'm outside, if I'm doing yard work, tractor work, if I'm mowing the lawn. It's like one of my favorite things to do because it's basically chop and drop. I love listening to long form content. So I'm just curious how you listen to your long form content, if you're different than I am, if you're the same. If you wouldn't mind, just actually comment that below, because I'm genuinely curious how you guys listen to this. So question number 5, what flowers grow easily that should be planted on this time of year for holiday arrangements? Now, the fun thing is that annual flowers, you can count pretty much like clockwork when they're going to be blooming. So for example, right now in Florida, if you want flowers October, November for like holiday table for Thanksgiving or whatever, now's the time to be planting. Now you can get really nerdy. I'll try and show you a picture of some of the color scheme ones that I do. I typically do a color scheme for my tabletops. So I am buying seeds that are in a very specific color scheme. So I've done them before in like burgundy and lime. I've done them in like all whites before, and off whites. I've done them in blush. So I like to do a color scheme. You do you. I don't do Pinterest. But I typically just save colors on my phone and go, yep, those are the 4 colors, 5 colors that I want. Now I do plan based on when I want them on my table. I rewind in time to know when I'm going to be planting them, and I give myself a buffer a couple weeks in case they're a little bit late, because I know that I want them fresh and looking really good on the table. So some of my favorite ones to be growing this time of year. So first and foremost, zinnias. Zinnias are 8 weeks until bloom time. Doesn't matter pretty much what type of zinnia. They're almost all going to be 2 months. They're going to be 8 weeks from seed until your first bloom. Now, obviously, I don't like the first one single bloom to be the one that I put on my table. So I typically, give it another probably 2 weeks. So I would say like 8 to 10 weeks for zinnias. Cosmos would be my second one. That one's going to be about 9 to 10 weeks from seed until bloom. So Cosmos does take a little bit longer, but their blooming time lasts for so long. And there's so many different types of Cosmos now. One of my favorite online sellers, and she does have an Instagram, is Mountain Lily Farm. I get a lot of my annual flowers from her. I just think she does a really good job. They grow true to seed. She has some really cool color combos that I have found to be really helpful, and they just add a lot of good visual interest in the garden. Number 3, I would say, would be celosia, not celosia. Celosia is about 3 to 4 months. That's a little bit of a longer one. Celosia is a great one. There are some edible varieties. Seed the Stars has an edible celosia, so that's a really good one. Bachelor buttons takes about 8 weeks. That's a good one to do now. Sunflowers all the time. Sunflowers. Now, some of them, like the dwarf varieties, I believe are 6 weeks from seed until flower, but some of the longer, the taller ones are going to be more like 9 to 10 weeks. So you've got to kind of look at what variety. Those are a little bit pickier on the sunflower. But also sunflowers you can grow year round in Florida. So I pretty much plant a few sunflower seeds every month. So it's like sunflowers and zinnias. But for me, when I'm looking at Thanksgiving, I'm definitely planting like August to make sure that they're on my table. Some of the other ones that are fun for this time of year would be amaranth, because it gets those long hanging down, the Love Lies Bleeding, the green verde is really a good one. So there's some really fun amaranths that are both edible and you can eat the leaves, but they provide a lot of really cool interest. And to me, they just look fall-ish. They're just a really unique look and a shape. The other one I was going to say toward the end of the month, oh yeah, snapdragons. So the end of the month, really September and October, I'm planting my snapdragons by seed because those take a long time until they're ready for flowering. So if I want those flowering December, January, then I need to be planting those in like September. So the snapdragons take a little bit longer. So again, that list would be like zinnias, cosmos, celosia, bachelor buttons, sunflower, amaranth, and then snapdragons, and nasturtiums, because I'm also part hobbit. So those are my fun ones for the holiday season. Question number 6, and we have 2 more questions. Question number 6. How do we help chickens this time of year who have started molting, and what do we do when they start slowing down their egg production this time of year? Let me answer the first part of that before we jump into the second. How do you help them? High protein, high B vitamins. So if you think about what those feathers are made of, it is calcium, It's B vitamins, it's amino acids, it's protein. That's pretty much what feathers are made of. So feed black oiled sunflower seed, feed mealworms, feed soldier fly larvae, a lot of bugs, a lot of insects. You can give them minnows. One of my favorite things to do, take a cookie sheet or a shallow Pyrex pan, not one you're gonna cook with tonight, set it down in the middle of the chicken run, put some water in it, and then dump some live minnows in it, and they just swim around, and the chickens go fishing. And it's fun to watch. It's a good stimulation activity, just helps them, just enjoy a little bit of fun in the hotter summer months. But we want to focus right now on letting their bodies repair, which brings me to the second part of that question. When your chickens slow down on laying, do nothing. Just let them heal. You know what I mean? Like, let their bodies heal and do their thing. They have just put out a lot of eggs for you all spring, all summer long. If they're slowing down right now, it's because their body needs to put out some feathers. It's because it's hot and they're exhausted. So don't be worried about making them lay eggs. Now, if you want to just give them a little bit of a nutrient boost that might slightly spike egg production, think dill, fennel, bronze fennel, cilantro, parsley. Those highly fragrant herbs can help just increase their overall vitality. But I'm not going to be trying to make them lay this time of year. Let their bodies enjoy a natural circadian rhythm. So if it's hot, just let them do their thing. Provide some cool treats for them. Make some herbal tea, cool it off, and then put some ice in there and let them drink a cool herbal tea. And that's a great way to keep them hydrated and provide that extra nutrients in the hotter months. Give them some electrolytes, not the kind that you would pour into your drink. It's got to be specific for poultry, and especially probiotics. So just give them that extra boost to help them through their molting season and to allow their bodies that natural repair time. Question number 7, and this is our last question for this month. Any thoughts on how to stay active in the garden after a health diagnosis? Now, this is a hard one, and this is one that I carry this one really close to my heart in my life because I am a cancer survivor. So around 2004, I was running and I felt pain. It turned out, long story short, I had testicular cancer. It had really spread through my blood very, very quickly and was pretty zesty in its movement. And I went on a full-on healing journey. So I was both praying, I was fasting, I switched to all organic foods, I was increasing my vitamins and vitamin infusions and all the things. But for me, some of the most healing time in my personal health crisis was my time outside and in the garden. Now, there's a lot of really good studies that show the benefits of vitamin D from the sun, the benefits of grounding and letting your bare feet touch the soil. But honestly, for me, being outside helped my heart and my mindset more than anything. And one of the things that I found out was that in my health journey, when I would look at my tumor markers in my blood, the times that I was stressed, my tumor markers would spike. Strange, isn't it? That your stress has an impact on the active cancer in tumor cells in the body. When I would be outside, when I would be in the garden, when the stress was less, when I'm spending time in prayer and in worship, I believe in Jesus, my tumor markers went down. So I would say if you get a health diagnosis, first of all, forget about all of the stressful garden activities. Focus on yourself. Focus on letting your body heal, your heart enjoy. If things get weedy, it's okay. It's food for the butterflies. If things get a little messy and overgrown, they're getting a Sabbath rest, just like you need a little bit of a Sabbath rest. So don't stress about things getting out of control. That's life. You can always go back and make things picture perfect or Instagram ready. Focus on your health. Secondly, I would say do whatever you can every single day. Just get outside. And if all you can do that day is go sit in a chair stare out the window and watch the birds at the feeder, rock on. Those birds are there for a reason. They're there to provide beauty and wonder, to do their job in nature. But that bird song helps bring healing to the mind, body, spirit, will, and emotions. Like, just be outside daily. Number 3, I would say pace yourself. Know your boundaries. When you start getting tired, do a little bit more because you do want to exercise, but stop. Don't exhaust yourself. Just learn to pace yourself. Then I would say also learn to adjust your system. So maybe if you're in a wheelchair, and for me at times when I was having to walk, whether it was with a cane or after my hip surgery, I wasn't standing, I wasn't standing for hours and hours on end. It was easier to pull up a chair by a raised bed and to work in a raised bed. So if you need to adjust your systems, that's okay. Do raised beds for a year or 2 or 3 or whatever it takes to make gardening enjoyable. Don't feel like you have to be on the ground right now. Would it be ideal to be on the ground when you're 90 years old, like my friend Miss Ollie? Yeah, for sure. The lady still sits on a stool and goes outside in the garden at 90 whatever years old. And it's great. But sometimes in life, we can't. Sometimes in life, we just have to pace ourselves and adjust our system. I would say the other couple things I would keep in mind is ask for help. Not just in the garden, but just ask for company. Say, hey, friend, hey, family member, I'm gonna go outside and work in the garden. Would you mind coming out and just sitting with me for a while? And if they wanna help, great, but spend time with people. Let people join you. It's good for them. Give them a fair share. Give them, if you can't pay them, give them some flowers, give them some food out of the garden, send them home with some plant starts. It's good for them to be outside and to be socializing, but it's really good to be socializing and connected yourself, especially when you're going through the ringer, in your health. Don't be spending all of your time alone thinking about your problems and your issues. Invite your neighbor over. Invite a friend to say, hey, once a week, would you come over and just help me in the garden? Most of them are gonna say yes, I think you'll find. Even neighbors would probably love to come over and spend time in your garden. In fact, especially if they don't have a garden themselves, they're gonna love it. They're gonna enjoy it. So give them some fruit, some vegetables, some cut flowers, and say, hey, come over and spend time with me, and let's order Chinese food, when we're done. Don't worry about you cooking the meal or whatever for them. Stay connected to people. And I would say the last thing, if you are facing a health crisis, if you've had a recent diagnosis, spend time with Jesus in the garden. Spend time with God in the garden. Like, get outside. You were created to be in the garden. You were created in a garden. Adam and Eve, life, human history itself began in a garden. And I would argue, Revelation 22, I would say history is going to end with a garden. It's going to end in a very, very similar way. Spend time communing in the garden. Spend time in prayer, in meditation, spend time in solitude, spend time listening and observing, because when life gets chaotic and stressful, go inward. Go inward and cultivate that secret inner life, and that is going to be what brings healing to you, more than being outside and in the garden and getting something done, more than checking off things on your monthly to-do list. Please don't even open up the monthly to-do list. If you've had a recent health diagnosis, just cultivate the inner life. Do the inner work and spend time there in the garden. Remember, our gardens and our food forest, we're not meant to be slaves to them. We're meant to be stewards. We're meant to go out there and to be connected to nature, because God created us to steward the earth, because he is coming back for a bride that wants to commune with him in the garden. So that's my personal belief. I don't know, who you are, where your journey has come from, but after my health scare, I can't get away from that part of my journey. That's a very real part of my journey and part of my life. So I very openly share that with you, but I respect, where you are in your journey. So hopefully those 7 questions were helpful to you. As always, any of the likes, the comments, the shares of this on social media are always super helpful. That's how I support myself. That's how I grow as a channel. So all of those little things that you do really do help along the way. And if you are not on Patreon, you want to do that 7-day free trial, you get an all access pass to every class, every video, every PDF file. You can binge watch and binge download everything that's in there if you want in 7 days. We would love to have you join us there on Patreon. So hopefully these were helpful to you this month. As always, have fun, and I'll see you again soon in the garden.